welcome to the Roundtable Podcast. I am Joseph. Joining me today are my friends Jazz Mataz and our special guest, the Splonker. They will be discussing the Comprehensive Economic Trade Agreement. Let me make sure I got that right. The Comprehensive Economic and Trade Agreement, or CETA, and they're calling it the first step towards totalitarianism. So very much looking forward to learning about that from fellow Canadian Splonker, who has a YouTube channel and a right-wing news show and comedy show. So check out the link in the announcements channel and check out his podcast or his content there. That being said, also join the Roundtable Discord server where we record this podcast. You can find over 250 episodes of that podcast on YouTube, on BitChute, and links to both in the RT podcast channel of the Roundtable Discord server. That being said, welcome Jazz Mataz and welcome the Splonker. How are you, gentlemen?
I'm doing great. How about you?
I'm doing excellent, thank you. Enjoying my day off. Looking forward to this event. Something I'm not super familiar with, so looking forward to learning more about it. Whoever would like to introduce it, we can get the ball rolling.
Sure. I'm great. Thanks for asking. What's up, everybody?
Sorry.
No, it's all right.
So basically, Jasmine is the one who introduced. So he's European. He's from Europe, parts of Europe, and I'm Canadian. And he's mentioned this to me, and wanted me to get well versed because he wanted to have a conversation about it. And I know nothing about it. Well, I knew nothing about it. I looked into it a little bit, and then he pulled me in here to have that conversation here live. So that's what we're doing here. So yes, it's a comprehensive trade agreement between Canada and Europe. So this is why we're doing this. So Jazz Mataz, what's up?
What's up? So yeah, the reason I got you guys in here is because, like was mentioned earlier, I'm not just from Europe. I'm from the Netherlands, which our parliament has on a majority consensus, including our Senate and the European Parliament, accepted this agreement. Just as the Canadian Parliament and the Canadian government has, which I mentioned in the title of this podcast, I think is the first step towards global economic totalitarianism. The reason is because if you read through the papers, there is drastic, and I mean very drastic economic repercussions for currently the branches of agriculture and agricultural produce and transport, but soon these changes within economic fields will definitely most likely overlap not just from Canada and Europe, but also the United States and the rest of Europe. And they won't just be regarding agriculture and sub-branches of that anymore. They will be regarding technology and, who knows what other branches of economics, or what other economic fields, rather. I'm against this, mainly because I think the EU is not capable of carrying any responsibility when it comes down to economic responsibilities in general. As for the EU and the euro in general, its value and most Western economies have been degrading for the last 10 years. And ever since the outbreak of the coronavirus, it's only been getting way, way, way worse.
So is this like a you're against it more so because you think the EU is shit?
Not necessarily. See, the EU originally was a trading pact or a trading federation in the 20th century, which was regarding steel and iron and coal, right? Which actually created a very open playing field economically for European and Western European, Southern, etc. nations to trade materials which were beforehand used to create war, essentially. Create tanks, other means of producing war material, which was used in World War I. So it, in a way, prevented the arms race, which was one of the leading causes for World War I breaking out in the first place, because every country now was capable of manufacturing and producing all these, economical advancements, or technological advancements, rather. Where the issue arises is when this doesn't just concern steel and iron and these big factories who are trying to make weapons essentially for the governments. But this starts concerning just about every other form of transaction. And we see that too within the last 10 years, and the change which the European Union has made, and the EU in general has made towards changing their influence and their authority and their place of authority within business and within economics. Meaning that 10 years ago within my country, most business and most transactions which were being done weren't necessarily authorized by laws which were instilled by the EU or its governing authorities or embodiments, but more so by local law, which created a bunch of opportunity because our country is constitutionally a libertarian country, which creates a bunch of economical possibilities. But like I mentioned before, this is a step towards creating a system where sooner or later we will all be part of the same economic authority, which will tax our money, which will make decisions whether or not the minimum wage should be raised or lowered, whether or not the working conditions should be changed, whether or not the global climate change rules should adapt or be be shutting down an entire city's labor force or not, for example. Because that's what's going on, really. If you look into it, and if you look at the current situation in the Netherlands, most farmers and most people working in agriculture in general are not only in insane amounts of debt, they're deliberately being put in this debt by a government which is pushing legislation which isn't even suggested or made by them, but by the governing authority above them, which is the EU.
Yeah, well, for us it's the same. It's pretty much the same, but it's like I believe we're just throwing money at the problem, which in turn will destroy. Like right now, I believe our farmers are being compensated to a degree, but years from now, we're gonna hit a severe problem, and our children are gonna be paying for this. But yeah, go on. How does this affect the the global plan? Because I mean, this is a trade agreement between Canada and Europe, or the EU. Sorry.
Yeah, it is. So, like I said, it is officially signed by the EU, and it is promoted as if, and it's interpreted by the majority and by the masses. I'm sure that's why I recommend everybody reading it very thoroughly, and it's a big paper. What's up?
Are you against trade with the between Canada and the EU in general?
Not at all. Not at all. Even more so, I think the relationship with trade relating our two nations has been very good for hundreds of years, essentially. And I don't see any reason as to why it wouldn't be other than this pact. The reason being is because as soon as you create one of these governing authorities, which essentially can legislate laws which influence both of our economies, you can no longer argue and change your market and make political changes within markets from the benefit of your own country's economy, essentially.
Exactly. Yeah, from the perspective of trying to benefit your own country. Yeah, you're right. I kind of see your point. Yeah, because like we've always been in favor of. I've always advocated for this. Like I'm a nationalist in the sense that I want to, and I believe you're the same, right? We both advocate for. We love our country first. That's where we start. We love our country, and it is because we know we acknowledge it's different from other countries, in a good way. And I mean, there are other good countries, but I do love Canada, and I want to keep it as such. And I want to make decisions, especially even trade agreements. I want to have a trade agreement with the European Union where we both look at each other and we try to benefit our own nation at the expense of the other. But since we're both trying to do that, we will then come to a compromise. This kind of eliminates, like it is kind of a good thing. But well, I mean, I can see how it can be presented on a silver platter as such, as being a very attractive prospect, but it's in the end, that's what it's exactly what it is. Is you're eliminating this idea of preserving your nation that you love and trying to go for this international goal. I think that's what you're going for, I guess. And so how does that? So we're for trade in general between these countries. How does this specific trade agreement differ in the sense? Like what worries you about this?
Well, one of the big things which worries me is the fact that within Europe, another thing which nobody's talking about, North American multinational companies have been able to evade taxes both from their own country and from the EU for the last 15 years. It baffles me, it leaves me baffled rather, why people don't speak of this, right? But this has and is what has been happening for the last 15 years, once again. The Prime Minister of Malta was openly advocating that he was selling European citizenships to Russian companies, to United States companies, to Canadian companies, where these big multinational national CEOs and co-CEOs would then pay him, I think the sum was around 800,000 euros or something like that. They're paying that amount of money, buy real estate within Malta, which they would never visit, obviously, and now have a European passport because Malta falls under this law. So by those facts, if they would then reside in, let's say, Luxembourg and open a business there, they wouldn't have to pay taxes because they would have to be rather treated as a Luxembourgish citizen, meaning that any transactions done online as a donation or as a trade good or as a forms of means of gambling is not taxed at all, right? These companies still have their headquarters based, their co-headquarters rather, of their daughter companies based in the United States or in Canada. Their labor force is still Canadian or American, yet there's this misconception that these multinationals are somehow like people like Bill Gates or George Soros or these other head founders of these organizations, that they have any interest, your best interest specifically, when it is obvious to me, and it has been obvious by what they've been doing for the last 15 years, that is not very much so. They do not identify themselves as being from any nation, seeing as the only thing that they really care about is evading taxes, it seems. They reside in Luxembourg until their scam gets exposed, which still nobody's even talking about, and then they will move their companies elsewhere. And Europe and their governments now have this battle, it seems, and their administrations over who can produce lower tax rates so these multinationals will reside in their country, when in reality, nobody's benefiting except these companies. And what this does is it creates a giant loophole in all different kinds of laws for these multinationals to abuse. For example, American companies who by American and Canadian law can reside companies and start businesses in Canada, therefore not have to pay United States taxes, right? They can then completely monopolize a business, which here in Europe will then suffer under because we can't compete with. And then they won't be, I don't think, paying local taxes to Canada either because they're still American citizens.
Why can't you compete?
Well, my country has a population of close to 17, 18 million people. The United States, from the top of my head, has 360 million people. The net worth of the top 20 Forbes is higher than the net worth of my nation, right? There's no economic competing here. Also, these are the same people which are responsible for what they claim to be the sole reason or cause of climate change, right? Because these people are also the heads of Philips, the heads of, Royal Shell or these other companies. These are the same people lobbying for this agenda, but they're the same people which want to push legislation in the name of global climate change, So one of the reasons why farmers in my country or people who work in the agricultural sector cannot do their job efficiently is because the government has pushed laws and legislation which came from the EU that said, for example, they're allowed to own 3 cows on a hectare of ground, right? Because
Yeah.
if they fart at the same time, there's too much CO2 produce or
Farts.
something. Yeah.
That's really a law?
Well, it's a bit more complicated than, but that's what it boils down to. What it boils down to is that the majority, 80-90% of the farmers, it's to the point where they're protesting. They're driving their tractors into the parliament
Really?
steps almost. Yeah.
Sure.
There's a lot of families which are going bankrupt because of this, which are completely a family business
Well,
which they've had for generations is gone because of
that's
this,
the
right?
thing, yeah. It's because that's what these big corporations keep on doing, and it's clear that they're doing that they're advocating for it's seemingly regulations that seemingly hurt them. Like Amazon have been pushing for the minimum wage. Same thing is they're pushing these things because they're already successful and they can afford to eat the cost to keep afloat, so that the people at the bottom just they can't do their jobs, and they can't get a leg up. So I mean that sounds like the same thing, putting the agriculture sector in the EU. That's what it sounds to me.
Yeah, exactly. That's
You want me to go through this fucking this list here?
well.
By the way, can I swear on this show, your show, Joseph?
Pardon me, sir.
May I swear? I just swear
Yeah,
bad
you're
words.
allowed to swear. No
Oh,
problem.
okay, good
No,
stuff.
no slurs. Not that you're going to use any, but yeah, swears are fine.
Awesome. Okay. Yeah, Jasmine has. Were you going to say something, or I have the list? I can go through it, and you say, what?
Well, sure, but before you start listing things, to tie things up here, is relating once again these farmers or boers, as they're called. They don't rather have a good history of being treated well by any Western government. Think of the stuff that happened to them in South Africa, but that's for a different conversation. But these people, right, which are essentially the cornerstone of our civilization, because they've kept us fed for the first, before the first city, the first buildings were standing in Amsterdam, right? So these people are essentially all going to be out of business. For American businesses to monopolize an entire branch from Canada. This is not good for Canada or for its citizens or for its economy. It's not good for my country, its citizens or its economy. And it's not going to create any job opportunity for United States citizens either, because these multinationals, they hire short contract people, locals usually, which are the cheapest they can find, right? These laws which they push, which you mentioned, don't apply to them because they're actively seeking to avoid them.
Yeah,
right?
and they could break like some of these regulations. They could just break them and pay the fine. I mean, they could,
Yes.
it doesn't apply to them, but I mean, it's just a barrier that they're putting for the people
Yep.
underneath them.
This is all leading, in my opinion, once again, to elaborate a bit more on my initial statement, is that this is all leading to the ultimate goal of the World Economic Forum and the World Health Forum, which is not a conspiracy theory, anybody that's listening to this. If you go ahead and use DuckDuckGo, a platform which I recommend to anybody, go on there, which is open source platform of any search results which are on the web, right? Nothing shady. You search up the World Economic Forum and the World Health Forum's plans for 2025. And you will read things like the Great Reset, and you will read things like Build Back Better in these terms. Which,
yeah, it's funny how they like the Great Reset. They keep saying that it's a conspiracy theory, but it's everywhere. It is it's in these documents, in government documents. It's retarded.
And these governments have specifically made these open source for you to read. So once again, the reason I'm speaking to you about this, everybody, is for you to read them, to find out that I am not an extremist. I am not coming from a perspective of radicalization or extreme nationalism or any out of order political thoughts. I'm coming from a perspective of seeing, by looking at history, where this is leading to. And this is leading to a totalitarian oligarchy which will be ran by these multinationals, who now with the Forbes Top 20 together make up half of the world's financial wealth. That means half of the world's global population accumulates or owns half of the other wealth, which is owned by 20 people. And these 20 people, along with a group of many other multinational billionaires or trillionaires, these are essentially going to be making all the decisions, because these are running the governments at this point, right? These are running entire economic branches. If they decide to shut or monopolize an economic field or an economic branch, they can. This is not a society we want to live in. We want to live in a society where we can vote for people, either to represent us democratically or to be able to run for politics ourselves. And then based upon those people coming in power, we can make laws and we can legislate them and we can make changes and decisions, right? If you have certain beliefs about the climate, then I endorse you by any means to enter politics when you're of the right age and to speak about them in your local parliaments, right? But what is happening now is that what is happening to our Earth, the same people which are mainly causing it, right, which own Philips, which own Shell, which win cobalt in Nigeria, which have burned entire villages down in African countries in order to win oil or cobalt once again or other natural resources. These people are pretending like you are the person doing it. And you're not supposed to feel guilty for driving a car, right? Because you can drive 3 different cars every day, right? But at the end of the day, you will never make a difference to what a factory, which is owned by Shell, will do, right? Or what the government of China is openly doing, or what Russia is doing, or other nations globally. So the only way we're going to make a difference to this is politically. It's not throughout letting these companies make decisions for us politically, where the middle field economically will be destroyed. You have the lower class citizens and you have the higher class citizens and nothing in between. You don't want to live in a society like that because that's an oligarchy and that's tyranny.
Yep. Did you want to... I don't know if we even have to go through this. I mean, it's basically... Let me just see. See if they explained.
You guys want to open it up and ask if anyone has any questions or comments at this point?
Sure, actually, if anybody wants to talk.
Well, if you would like to list just the statements that you can find in the pact openly, because you guys now heard my interpretation and my summarization of a quick read-through.
Trade in goods. So CETA eliminates tariffs and reduces barriers for virtually all sectors and aspects of Canada and EU trade. Prior to this agreement, only 25% of EU tariff lines on Canadian goods were duty-free. With CETA, 98% of EU tariff lines are now duty-free for Canadian goods. Canadian exporters have clear and favorable rules that consider Canada's supply chains to determine which products are considered originating and therefore eligible for preferential tariff treatment. Customs and trade facilitation. So Canada and the EU are working to keep custom procedures simple, effective, clear, and predictable. This okay, so whatever. This is like kind of empty. Regulatory cooperation. So CETA helps avoid unnecessary or discriminatory regulation requirements. EU and Canadian regulators are collaborating to create regulatory measures that make it easier for Canadians to do business in the EU. So like they mean discriminatory in the sense that like as someone from the EU, you would discriminate against the Canadian company because they're not. I mean, you would rather rather have someone.
It's one of these things which to us seems silly, but to one of these multinationals that now means I can infinitely take you to court for discriminating me based upon my company's identity for being from Canada.
Yeah,
meaning
that's
that, this is one of many loopholes. Once again, there's another law which relates security measurements. That's a gigantic loophole, right? Because essentially now that means that technological or other producers in the future will be imported from Canada without being regulated by my government. And if an American company produces that, that means that American companies specifically get to now introduce goods into my country's economy without ever being regulated by my country's nation, which is totalitarianism, global economic totalitarianism. And you don't want that.
Stay with me. Totalitarianism.
Totalitarianism. There we go.
It's all good. So the next one is government procurement. So Canadian companies can bid on opportunities at all levels of government in the EU, opening potential business estimates at $3.3 trillion annually. So CETA provides Canadian service providers with more business opportunities in the EU, making it easier for certain skilled professionals to work temporarily in the EU. Investments provisions in CETA are designed to give investors greater certainty, stability, and protection for their investments and to provide access to an independent dispute resolution mechanism. And then sustainable development. So CETA includes clear commitments to uphold Canada's high standards and not to undermine them for commercial gain. High standards. Canada, like especially they say environment standards. Like we have high standards, but our own government don't hit those standards. I believe Justin Trudeau he's failed like on a 98% rate.
The thing is, we now have the same standards, and by no means ever, and this is what every boer and every farmer in my country is saying, they are running in parliament advocating and screaming this from the top of their tractors, literally, is that none of these measurements or standards can ever be met by my country's farmers. Never can they be met. So essentially the goal which is set is negative for any farmer, which brings us back to the point of totalitarianism and the middle class disappearing, is that now it's the farmers, but soon it will be the coal workers, and then it will be taxi drivers, and then it will be home delivery people because drones start flying. And then other branches will start being dominated by multinationals till the point where there's only multinationals dominating branches, and they essentially dominate the world.
All right. So in the end, basically, we're reading this, and we've said this. You're fine with the EU and Canada trading.
Yes, of course.
But this looks like a road towards hell, basically, is what you're saying.
Well, it creates a gigantic black gaping hole for companies to abuse both of our countries' economies.
Yeah. Well, that makes sense.
Yeah.
I am new to this one again, and so I'll have to. This was fun, and I'll have to. I'm more interested now, but anyways, I think that pretty much sums up. Anything else you want to say? Anybody else in the? I see there's people in the chat there who want if they want to say something. Whoa!
Questions or comments for the guests or on the topic?
Flow Rhythm just cleared his throat and he bursted my eardrums.
I'm sorry. Is the sound okay?
No, that's perfect. Sounds
okay.
Beautiful.
Cool. I just want to say, hey, what's up, man? I just joined. I knew you were in a conversation, so I didn't catch much of it, but
you just wanted to join in.
Yes.
Yeah, you're a good guy. We were talking about CETA, and we were talking about how that's gonna probably take over the world, and it's a totalitarian. It's an aim at totalitarianism worldwide, my friend. This is a international thing. This is a globalism. This is a part of globalism, and we're not for it. Are you a globalist, my friend?
Is it an organization?
Why don't we give an opportunity, and just in case there was anyone who heard the presentation or the conversation who wanted to ask a question?
Oh yeah, sure.
Yeah, if anybody wants to ask any questions relating what I just said, any of my statements or any of the sources, I'll just list all my claims and the sources which you can search up independently yourself. Once again, I recommend DuckDuckGo, but any other means are fine too. The World Economic Forum and their plans relating 2025. The World Health Forum, their plans relating 2025. Also, CETA, once again, it will be in the title and the description. There will be links to all of these files. And if you want any of the statements relating to boers, there is the Party for the Boer in my country, which is the Netherlands, which is a political movement which you can search up. Obviously, they are not the only ones speaking of this, right? If you search up on an independent source, Netherlands Boers protest, you'll see a bunch of tractors driving through Den Haag, which is our political capital, right? The reason is because this is a big issue, and not just this political party, but everyone's talking about it. It's getting censored, right? Canadians are not supposed to know this because this is a glimpse of what the future will be for certain branches of your economy, right? So if anybody has questions relating any of the statements I made, please go ahead and ask away.
Sounds like the most active guy was my flow boy here.
Yeah, I mean, I think that we covered a lot here, and we got a lot of good information out. So, did either of you gentlemen have anything else you wanted to add on, or any closing thoughts or remarks?
I would like to say I like your idea, your podcast here. I like the angle. I like that you're just having people having conversations. That's a really sweet idea. And I will subscribe. What is it again? What is your because we just met. I was just pulled in.
Yeah. So this is the Roundtable Discord server. We have about 250 podcast episodes uploaded, quite a few more that we haven't uploaded or didn't record. You can find them on the RT podcast channel. If you look in general chat, I will link you to that channel, and you can find links to our podcast. There's different episodes on both YouTube and BitChute where we host them. So check them both out. This episode will be on there as well. So there's that channel. You can follow and subscribe both of those. Eventually, all the episodes will be up on both platforms, but right now they have a lot of distinct content on the two different channels there.
Yeah, I'll be subscribing just because I this is the kind of content I like to enjoy. Just like a long, just a normal conversation, and I don't know. It seems like you have a lot of variety for content, so that's cool. My podcast, just to throw that out there again, Chance of Flurry is just me and another guy, Carl. He writes articles for the National Telegraph, and we just sit around and read articles and laugh at people on videos. And we've been laughing a lot at Rob Carbone. People, look him up. Look up Robert Carbone. He's the leader of the Canadian the Canadian Republican Party, and he's making quite a fool of himself lately. He's quite entertaining. I checked him out. But
what is this Telegraph?
The National Telegraph is kind of a news outlet that my buddy Carl writes articles for.
Yeah, and so please check out the Splonker's YouTube channel. You can find the link to that in the announcements channel. Also, Splonker, we have a member content channel. Feel free to post links to all your stuff there. You can also post it in the general chat. And welcome to the server. Thanks for coming to do the podcast today. You ever want to do another episode, just same process, send me a direct message, throw in some art, a time and date, and some topics, and we can announce them anytime. So you're welcome to do that as often as you like.
Awesome.
So thank you, Jack. Go ahead, sorry.
Yeah, no worries. Sorry to cut you off there. So to clear things up, in the end, I don't have my own platform. If you guys enjoy me speak, I appreciate anybody listening to this. What I hope to leave you guys with is maybe fruit of thought or interest in what I'm speaking of. Look into it. Do your own research. If you were ever interested if you're in the Netherlands by any chance or anywhere in Europe, or if you're from Canada and you would like to be seeing which political movements are representing and voicing these thoughts, which I am, I'd highly recommend you look into a party called FVD. It's an acronym for Forum for Democracy. I'm a member of this party, and they are one of many political movements now which are trying to fight this majority coalition, which is in the process of being formed, essentially ran by George Soros, one of these 20 men who runs the economic global playing field. And as for podcast, I appear every now and then on the Chance of Flurry, like it was just mentioned. It's a cool podcast, and the co-host is the guy who was mentioned, by the way, Rich. he's a person who writes for the Telegraph. He's a friend of mine as well, Carl. He's a good guy. The reason I mention it is because this relates Canada and the Netherlands amongst a few other European countries now. But soon this will relate the United States, this will relate Spain, this will relate Italy, most likely North Africa or Eastern Europe. And soon all of us will be talking about this. So if you want to be one step ahead, look into it before it happens. And I appreciate you all for listening and tuning in.
Thank you, Jasmine Taz, for the content and for setting up the meeting with Splonker. Also, I know you have a lot of great ideas and knowledge of history and so forth. So hopefully we can do several more episodes with you as a guest as well in the future. But we'll discuss that down the road. And
sure, buddy.
Thanks, guys, for your time. Both of you. Thank you, everyone, for attending. Again, this podcast will be uploaded to YouTube and BitChute, and make sure you've joined the Roundtable Discord server. We record our podcast usually every day about 8 or 9 p.m. Central. Keep an eye on announcements channel for upcoming events and RT Podcast for all our past podcast episodes. For now, please jump up to either a voice chat or video chat channel above, and we will leave the recording channel now. Thanks, and God bless everybody. I'll see you next time.
Ciao. Appreciate you all.
Peace.
Please.